Hey guys, today I'm just going to be doing a video lesson for you for the team. I was unable to make it in today, but I was able to do some work on your guys' games. So today, what the emphasis is going to be on is playing defensive chess. So a lot of you guys are really aggressive, and that's good, but only if you're defensive first. So as you can see, I put this little flow chart on the right that I want all you guys to start thinking like. We have, why did they do that? Does it work? And then yes and no. So if it's a yes, it does work, what can I do about it? And no, make a principled move. And when I say a principled move, I mean things that we've talked about in class, like developing your pieces, castling, bringing another piece into an attack, things like that. What is a principled move? That's a whole other part of chess. But today, the focus of the lesson is going to be on defensive chess. The reason I decided to focus on this is I went through all your games from last week and I added a few here. And some of you play really good defensive chess where you're thinking about what your opponent can do. But some of you, even the stronger players on our team, are too aggressive, and they wouldn't work against stronger players. It's good to try to go for an attack and rip the king side open, but we need to worry way more about what our opponent does than what we want to do. So if you guys do this thinking, why did they do that? Does it work? Every single move, all of you would be much stronger players instantly. So next week when I'm in class, we're going to work on in your games, every move, thinking about this process. But for now, we're just going to show some games whether people are doing it or aren't doing it. And again, these are just single games. The results don't really matter. All that matters is learning. So I'm not singling anybody out by going over these games. It's just part of the learning process. So the first game is with Caleb and Hans, two strong players on our team. And here's how the game went with Caleb is white, Hans is black. So we have a very normal opening, very good moves, developing towards the center, very good chess. These are all principled moves. Getting our pieces out, bishop g5, bishop g4, h3. All right, so this is the first point where the flow chart, I think, should pop into your head. So why did they do that? They want to threaten the bishop and try to take it. Does it work? Well, yes, taking the bishop works. So Hans correctly responds, whoops. You're supposed to either take on f3 or move back here. So taking on h3 and ripping open the king side can be a good idea. But here it's not, because you only got one pawn and the king is only a little open. Sacrificing a bishop on h3 is not necessarily a bad move, to think about, but you definitely need to be more defensive. Much better would be either to trade or go to h5. So part of the reason h5 is so strong is if they do g4 to end the pin, you do bishop g6. Now their king side is so open. There's so much air there. So now you have a whole extra piece and their king side is open if you play bishop h5 and tempt them to make this mistake. But here, they're up a whole piece. And if you don't believe me, let's turn on the engine. +3. So white is up a full piece here. Oh, it's behind the flowchart for you guys. Let me move that just for a second to show you. It's +3 here. So what that means is white is up a full piece. Okay, so we don't want to be giving that up. So let's keep going though. We have knight a5, bishop takes, queen takes, bishop c6, sorry, d5, and then we have c6. Why did they do that? Threatening the bishop. Let's move it back. Bishop b3. So far Caleb is playing good defensive chess. Takes, takes, d5, takes, takes, knight takes d5, and queen g6 check. So here we have a few places to put the king, really just two. Play king h1, queen f5. So this is another moment for the flowchart. Why did they do that? They're threatening to play queen takes here, check. What can we do about it? There's a couple things. We could play king h2 to protect the pawn. We could play knight g1 to protect the pawn. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So here, again, so far Caleb has played excellent defensive chess, and that's why he's up a full piece. But here he goes knight e7 check, and I actually was nearby the game, and I heard Caleb say, this is a fork, and Hans said, no, it's not. So you're right, it is a fork, but it doesn't work because the bishop can just take. So Caleb, just for a moment, was too tempted by all the tactics he did on ChessKit and saw this juicy check to try to go up a queen. But alas, it was too much. So instead, a defensive move would have been better. But we play knight e7, they take it, queen d2, and all of a sudden queen takes f3, and we're down a full piece. So it seemed like Caleb played really, really well, really great defensive chess, and then all at once sort of lost a few pieces by playing too aggressively. So the game went on a little longer, and this is the last moment I wanted to highlight, was Hans has the attack now. He's proving me wrong with his kingside rip open, sacking the piece. But here he plays, Caleb plays rook f1, and Hans played e3. So I'm going to pause for a second. There is a checkmate here that black missed. That could have ended the game on the spot. They ended up finishing this game, I believe, in class, but it took a much longer time. So black to move and win with checkmate. All right. I'm going to just go ahead with the answer here. Gave you a sec to look for it. So if Hans plays queen h2 here, the king can run away to safety. So we can't let that happen. Instead, there's bishop h2 check. And now the king can't go this way. You go here, bishop g3 check, king here, and it's a mate in 3. So this is a little tough for you guys to see, but I just wanted to show that there was a checkmate here. So even though Caleb was very much ahead when he was playing defensive chess here, it all went wrong once he started not thinking about why did they do that. So let's look at another game that was played in the tournament that we play on Wednesdays. So we have e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, knight c3, bishop c5. So for those of you listening in class, I'm going to flip the board around. There's a really nice move here that you all should have in your head. It's the center fork trick. You take in the middle, they take, and you play d4, winning your piece right back. So now you have your queen in the center, and there's no good way to attack it. All your pieces are coming out. White has a really nice position. So, but it's okay. We kept going instead. Nothing wrong with, continuing to play good moves. h6, and then again, this bishop takes h6 move. So we have a few players who like sacrificing for that h-pawn, and that is not a good move. The only way it's a good move, and I'll use the computer here to prove it, if we look at the computer evaluation, it says black is up almost a full rook of material. Okay, it bounced back down, a full piece of material. But let's say instead you played here, they played here, you played here, and they did some silly move like this. Now let's take on h6. Now it's dead equal. The reason being, your queen is right up in their face and you got both pawns. You got both pawns from them. So it's important, you guys. I'm okay with you going for this sacrifice. I really am. But make sure you get 2 pawns, not just 1. Otherwise, the king can hide behind 1, okay? So again, this lesson's about defensive chess, but if you're going to attack, let's at least do it right and get a couple of pawns. So let's keep going. What happened in the game was this, knight h4, And again, black plays a great defensive move, knight h7, opening up the queen. And white needed to ask, why did they do that? So they might have just said, oh, they did it to, put their knight in a defensive square. And they didn't think hard enough, because the real threat is queen takes h4, losing the piece. So then you should think, what can I do about it? And a good move would be queen h5 to defend the knight and continue to attack. But instead, we got queen to d2, and white immediately drops the piece. Knight d5, d6, more great defensive chess from black, locking up the center and bringing in another piece. We have h3, bishop e6, knight to e7. So knight to e7 looks like a clever move, but unfortunately, again, two pieces can take it. So this is too aggressive of chess from white. But luckily, black finally doesn't call their bluff, plays king h8, and they take on c6 and trade everything, and now white is down 2 entire pieces and is completely lost due to over-aggression. So we have c3, rook g8, g3, and at this point, black is completely crushing and gets the nice knight checkmate. So again, white could have had a nice advantage in this game, but instead we get this super aggressive chess that doesn't work because they didn't worry about what their opponent can do. So I'm going to show one more example of being too aggressive, and then these last 4, 5, and 6 are some really nice examples of defensive chess. So we have e4, e5, knight f3, knight f6, knight c3. We got the 4 knights. All good stuff so far. Your openings, all you guys are playing very well. Your openings are very good. You're all obeying the principles. We have d3, and then we have bishop takes f2. Again, different players still are loving to sacrifice their bishop. But again, I'll check with the computer. This says +8. So this is a really bad sacrifice of the bishop. Okay, bounce back down, but still a lot worse. White is much better. So knight takes e4, again a piece sacrifice, knight b4, and these are all moves that the opening's over and we're just trying to take things. It's good to be aggressive, but you still have lots of pieces that aren't in the game, and we're not calculating why did they do that. We're not taking a second to be like, oh, well, if I take here, can't they just take me back? So these are things that we need to clean up as a team to do well in tournaments. All of us together, work together on it. So knight b4, bishop g5, d6, and bishop takes d8. So we just dropped our queen. So white went on to win this game quickly, and it came from black not asking, what is white trying to do? Moves like d6 come purely from thinking, oh, I can't wait to get my pieces out and continue to take stuff and attack them. But on the team, when we're playing in tournaments, we need to be defensive. So those are kind of the common mistakes of sacrificing pieces and going for attacks that you didn't really take a second to think, what can my opponent do? And that's okay. These are only singular games, and it's all about learning from them. So these last 3, I'm going to be more positive and show some examples of the chess that I want to see from all of you. So this is Ella against Jude during class. e4, e5, knight f3, knight f6. We do go for this, which drops a pawn, but that's not the point. We play d3, knight d6, defensive chess, moving out of the way. Bishop f4, bishop e7, perfect, wanting to castle. Thinking, oh, my king is in the open, I have to protect it. We castle, bishop e2, bishop h4. So I would say this is overly aggressive, but we could bring our rook in. We're opening things up for other pieces. Bishop h5, knight to c6. We want to trade pieces to open things up, get the king open. Bishop takes f7 check. So this is the first move I'd say is a mistake. Overly aggressive again. Instead, we should have just castled or developed a piece. So then we have rook takes f7, and now white thinks about, why did they take with the rook? Well, they want to take my bishop. Does it work? Yes, it does work to take a free bishop. What can I do about it? I can protect it and attack another piece. So this is a great move. In chess, if you can do two things at once, that's awesome. If you can both protect yourself and attack, those are master level moves. Those are the moves that good players make all the time. So G3, I'm going to give an exclamation point. That's good. That's what I want to see. So we have bishop e7. Black again being defensive, moving away, keeping their material. We have knight to d5, queen to f8, piling up on this bishop. I like it. I would have maybe preferred to see d6 instead to get another piece into the game, but still not a bad move. So queen e2. Now we get d6 because they thought, oh, what are they trying to do? They're threatening to take here. Does it work? Not really, because there's two attackers and 1, 2, 3 defenders. So there's way enough defense. So we can just develop. Very good, getting a bishop out. Takes, takes, and then now all of a sudden the queen is pinned. So what could white have done instead here? White played queen takes e7, which, you drop your queen. Instead, we could have played bishop e3. Things wouldn't be, super nice because black has all this pressure and better development. But the point is, even though this wasn't a perfect game by any means, there was a lot of mistakes, as there are in all of our games. This was much better tournament chess because I saw defensive chess and thinking about what your opponent can do. So this was, I'd consider, a really good game for the class. So then we have Ben versus Finn. And this is a very interesting game because while I feel like, again, as all of us do, we all make mistakes. There was mistakes in this game. It shows how important this flow chart is of why did they do that? Does it work? What can I do about it? Or make a principled move? Because this is more important than everything I teach you guys during class. Like we talk about this, but talking about opening principles and talking about playing good moves, none of that matters if you don't first play defensive chess. Make a principled move is on the bottom here. So in this game, even though there's some mistakes, they were obeying the flow chart and the game was much higher quality because of it. So e4, c6, knight c3, knight h6. So already an opening principle is broken. We don't want knights on the rim. Knights on the rim are dim. It can only go to 1, 2 squares or back from here. If instead we played knight f6, for example, we cover 1, 2, 3, 4 squares and the back one. So it just does more in the middle. But again, that's not what we're talking about, just playing defensive chess. Bishop c4, knight a6, same problem as before. Knight f3, e5, knight g5. And this is the first moment, as you guys know, there's the fried liver, a lot of threats on f7 you are used to. So Finn, very correctly here, notices that there is an attack on f6. So he could have played queen takes g5 and won a full piece, but instead played f6, which still is a good move because it protects, it protects your king and it attacks the piece that's attacking you. Again, not the best move, but it's preventative chess, and that's what I want to see from you guys. Instead, white, after playing a perfect opening, developing all the pieces, plays bishop f7. And Finn takes, and king takes, and all of a sudden is up a piece, despite starting the game with knight h6 and knight a6. So, not a perfect opening for black, but they're up a piece because they're obeying the flow chart. g6, queen f3, c5, castles, b5, bishop b7. So again, we sack a pawn, but we're developing. So this is like a lot of really good chess. Finn is not obeying the opening principles, but is playing very smart chess. We have d4, takes the free pawn, bishop f4, and Finn notices this pin on e4 and says, what do we do with pins? We pile up on them. We play f5, exclamation point. So I'm going to give this an exclam. Whenever there's a pin, you want to pile up the pressure. So now if white takes, you just take the queen. So very good move. White, though, is starting to play defensive chess, plays rook f1. We take, 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 take. And at least, you know, we got a bishop and a pawn for it, and we're starting to attack the king. But still, you know, Finn realizes the problem, plays queen e8, queen e6 to protect his king, and even though he loses the rook, this is still the chess I want to see, keeping the king safe. So we go a little further. Finn is attacking and defending. So here was another great moment. So we play queen f6 to attack the bishop and protect our own rook so we can move the bishop away and hit the queen. Bishop c7 and bishop e7. Now we're making threats. We're being defensive, but we're making threats. Queen d5 check, queen e6, takes, takes, rook e1, king f7, knight d6, and king f8, still protecting. So, like I said, I went through that game a little fast, but I just wanted to show that even while breaking opening principles, if you just play defensive chess and focus on not making mistakes, you can end up in a great position. And so this was a really well played game. I give this one, you know, tournament level chess for sure, because we're thinking about what our opponent can do. If we only are trying to, you know, make moves to advance our own thoughts, we're not going to continue to progress as chess players. So the last game is one of my games where I beat a 2475 only with this preventative thinking. And just to scroll down, I'll show the computer evaluation just to prove this is actually a good game. 96 accuracy and a 10 centipawn loss. This is around, you know, grandmaster level accuracy for a single game. And like I always say in class, a single game, even 100 games, doesn't really matter. It's just one game, but this is a good example of defensive chess. Not saying I'm a grandmaster here, guys. Not yet. So we have e4, c6, my favorite Caro-Kann, d4, d5, takes, takes. And I'm going to stop at the flow chart moments. So bishop g4, e6, just developing our pieces. And now I played bishop to d6. And my opponent, despite being 2475, does not go through the flow chart. I just wanted to show that everybody makes these type of mistakes. So after bishop d6, they should have thought, why did they do that? Does it work? And what can I do about it? So I did that because I have 2 attackers on this pawn. And they have 0 defenders. So they have to play g3. So then they have a pawn protecting a pawn. Instead they play h3. I take, and then play bishop takes f4, and I'm up a pawn against a 2400. They take, I take, queen e2, and I'm up a piece. So it's worth noting though, queen e2, what are they threatening to do? Why did they do that? They want to play knight to e5 and put a discovered attack on my queen. It does work, so I move my queen. That's what I can do about it. They play knight to e5, and I take, move my knight, bishop b5. So now, it's an annoying move. They cross the center line. Why did they do that? They're threatening my knight. If they just take, all of a sudden I can't castle. So what can I do about it? I protect it with my rook. So if they take, I just take back with the rook, and I can still castle next move. So instead they play rook f3 to hit my queen. I move back to g6 because again I don't want to lose pieces. Bishop to d3. Queen to g5. I'm just playing defensive. I'm avoiding losing material. Rook e1. And then a6. I don't want their bishop back here. I want to guard this square. Defensive chess. They play king h2. And what is their new threat? Why did they do that? A king move. Very weird. So what they're threatening is rook to g3. And then let's say we play rook to g3. Let's say I just was dumb and I played this. They play rook g3. I play queen here, and now they take this pawn. My king side is ripped open and I'm unsafe. So instead, I play g6. So now, if they do the same thing, I go here, and they can't take on g7 anymore. Just defensive moves, keeping my position close together. They play rook g3 anyway, and I play queen to f4. They play rook to f1, and they've just dropped the pawn. They had 2 defenders here. I had 2 attackers, and they just lost one of them. They just moved it over. So I play queen takes e5. They play queen f2. And what is their final threat after they're down all these pawns? Again, all the other games showed it. Queen takes f7, checkmate. So I castle, and white resigns. They're so frustrated with their position, even though I didn't do anything. I didn't attack one time this game. All I did was shuffle out of the way, play defensive moves, and they're so frustrated that they resign because they're down a full piece just because of all my space and how I have pawns. So, in class today, I know I'm not here, but in class today, please focus on playing defense. I want to see good defensive chess from all of you guys, okay? Notating your games would be really nice so I can look at them next week when I'm back, but please play defensive chess and do not sacrifice your pieces unless you're about to get that material back right away, okay? All right, thanks guys. Have a good day.